She's reached the relative safety of Turkey, but she still daren't talk openly. A young Syrian activist who's fled not from the guns or agents of the Assad regime, but from a new alien force. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, is a branch of al-Qaeda that's taking over ever more of rebel-held northern Syria. This is the story of how she and other Syrians from her home city of Raqqa have been terrorised by the jihadis after they thought they were liberated.
7 or 8 men with explosive belts surrounded my sister. Some said knife her, some said shoot her. They tore down her banner that said Christians and Muslims are one and told her she was an infidel.
They
are the new dictators, just like Bashar al-Assad, but dressed in black. Only the colour has changed.
They bring children and order them to chant their slogans, to say down with freedom. We want a caliphate.
The Islamic State celebrated its takeover of Raqqa exactly 6 months ago. Celebrated by rounding people up to watch an execution. The victims, they said, weren't Muslims.
They didn't say their names, just that they were Alawites. They fired in the air, shouting, "God is greatest."
An ambulance came for the bodies. They told the driver to dump them on a rubbish tip, but he insisted that they were buried properly.
Raqqa, its population now nearly 1 million, including displaced people, may be the largest city in the world ever fully controlled by al-Qaeda. So, just give me an example of that, you know, of how they made you behave differently, what they got you to do that you didn't want to do.
I was walking down the street when 2 masked men gave me a paper saying I must wear Islamic dress, no makeup or high heels. Otherwise they would take me to ISIS headquarters and beat me severely.
They banned the sale of alcohol. They tried to close cafes where boys and girls sit together. They banned street cinema, theatre, bright colours.
The men who imposed the reign of terror include jihadis from North Africa, Saudi Arabia and Europe, seen here training in northern Syria. ISIS forces are thought to include as many as 100 Britons.
I'm here to help the Muslims in Syria for jihad and to raise the flag of La ilaha illallah. I say to the United States that your time will come and we will bleed you to death, and inshallah ta'ala will raise the flag in the White House.
With aims far wider than Syria, they've discredited the revolution in the eyes of the world and split rebel forces. And that's produced another wave of refugees trying to keep warm in a makeshift camp on the Turkish side of the border. These have arrived in the last month from the nearby town of Azaz, where jihadis have now taken control. 12-year-old Mohammed can no longer go to school, but he's desperate to keep up his English.
We had to leave Damascus because Bashar al-Assad destroyed our homes, so we moved to a village. But the village was also destroyed, so we came here to be safe.
Just a few miles beyond the fence they cling to is a swathe of jihadi-controlled territory that's now getting wider almost by the day. Syrians who've been under attack from their own government for the last 2 years are now bewildered and horrified to find that they have a second, equally ruthless enemy. They're being squeezed, sometimes literally squeezed to death, between 2 forces, jihadis and the regime, who should be at opposite extremes, but who seem sometimes now to be working in one another's interests. When ISIS fighters attacked one of Raqqa's main churches and made it their headquarters, they confirmed Assad's prediction that the revolution would turn sectarian.
2 carloads of armed fighters went onto the roof of the church. They broke the bell with hammers, and one of the crosses they threw down into the street. They tried to break it, but it was iron, and they threw down a crucifix too.
The crucifix was seized by children, but the cross was taken up by demonstrators chanting "Shame, shame." Outside ISIS headquarters, they shouted that Muslims and Christians would fight together for freedom. But now many of those protesters and other social activists have been arrested or forced to flee.
They beat me with a rifle and with their hands when they arrested me, and they threw a wheel on my back so I couldn't move. When I was arrested, my mother came to their headquarters and shouted at them, "You're like bats. When did you come to Syria? Where were you when our children stood defenceless against Assad's bullets?"
Back on the border, refugees who've now escaped Assad's bullets and bombs condemn him, but they're mostly too scared to say anything against the jihadis. The new enemy that's jumped into the chaos of Syria may now take even longer than the regime to dislodge.